Hey guys, let's get into the latest rugby news, the video where I go through all the news so that you don't need to read through every single bit every single week. So I didn't make one last week. There was a limited amount of news before that video, which I intended to make every Monday. But I was busy with other videos as well, which is linked up here if you want to check them out after this video. Here are the headlines we'll get into this week. The transfer news that includes some World Rugby Player of the Year news, Pieter Steph du Toit. There's a lot of rumours floating about with him. More news surrounding the Bulls again. They are in the transfer market the whole time with Jake White taking over there. Then there are some talks out of New Zealand suggesting a return to tours in international rugby. Then Australia and New Zealand is closing in on return dates for their Super Rugby competitions. And then the 12-team World Rugby Championship is back on the cards. But first, the most important bit of news: Beaumont won the World Rugby Championship by 28-23 to Peshawar, and was even closer till the end where Africa and Japan voted for Beaumont instead of Peshawar, as it was rumored before. But rumors has it that Japan is going to be promoted to Tier 1 status with Beaumont coming in now again, and that might settle it why Japan actually voted for him. Peshawar promised to reform World Rugby to have a better relationship and better representative of Tier 2 rugby, and it was actually quite strange to see a lot of Tier 2 countries actually voting against him for Beaumont. That didn't really promise a lot for Tier 2 countries, just a few speculative comments and here and there. But here is how the voting went down at the end. As always, it was the Six Nations versus Sanzar, as expected, with Peshawar having Sanzar behind him, Beaumont having the Six Nations behind him, and that at the end brought more points for Beaumont because the Six Nations have 6 more points backing them. But there were a few other strange things that happened in the votings. The regions didn't seem to actually stick together. A few examples of this is Rugby Asia actually voted for Peshawar, but then Japan voted for Beaumont. South African Rugby voted for Peshawar again, but Africa voted for Beaumont. So it looked like the regions did split up a lot. Canada and USA, that's a typical regions. They are very close together, and they voted for the two parties, which meant North American Rugby also had to split their votes, which rendered their votes really null. No one had to actually vote at the end. Fiji and Samoa went for Beaumont, while Oceania Rugby went for Peshawar. So that was just weird to see that everyone actually split their votes. The regions didn't stick together. It was the closest vote ever for a chairmanship, so it was close, but at the end of the day, Beaumont is in. Hopefully he does bring the changes that he did promise that he didn't bring the last time around. Hopefully it does come this time. Then we head into some transfer news. After believing for about a day or so that my favorite player, or one of my favorite players, Pieter Steph du Toit, could become one of the highest paid players in the world, with Montpellier offering him 100,000 euros a month. That's about 2 million rand a month, by the way, for anyone from anywhere else. That is now believed to be fake news. Montpellier actually released a statement saying that they deny making any contractual offer to Pieter Steph du Toit, and these speculations only aim to harm the interests of the club. Is this just some fake news, or is this that situation where there is smoke, there is a fire? Pieter Steph du Toit has also been linked to the Harlequins, 2 Japanese clubs, and in some other big clubs as well. The Stormers look to be hit hard with this 21 days where the guys could get out of their contracts in South Africa, with Lades and Wilco already leaving before this 21 days. Reports now come that Kutsia and Visa can also leave the club after this. They have until 14 May, obviously, to get out of their contracts. More transfer news from the Bulls again. Marcel van der Merwe is signed from Toulon. they may have a lot of strength in the props next year, the Bulls. And it also looks like Libbok is released from the Bulls and has signed for the Sharks. And that is after White said Libbok won't be starting in his side, Steyn will be starting. But is this the best pick for Libbok? Because he will be behind Bosch at the Sharks as well. I would have picked another club maybe. Then some news from the Cheetahs. They are also making some moves after signing Frans Steyn a little bit earlier this month or last month. They have went against the grain and signed 2 youngsters from French clubs. Yes, that's how it went down. They are 2 former Grey College boys who went to school here last year. It is Marcel Miller and George Cronje from Montpellier and Clermont respectively, and they are lured back with the promise from Harvey's Fourie that they will play for the seniors by the time they are 21. So they have 2 years to make that. Cronje, he is arguably one of the greatest loose forwards school rugby did see last year. Miller, he is 1.87 meters tall, 102 kgs. He is a winger, so it puts him above all the other wingers here in South Africa. He is bigger than most of our wingers, and he runs 100 meters in 11.1 seconds, so pretty quick. Then in other news, a few ex-All Blacks want international rugby to return to tours, saying the most exciting times of their playing careers were when they actually went on tours playing in other countries. They mentioned specifically being an All Black touring to South Africa, and fans would also want to have that, the reverse fixtures as well. So 1 year the All Blacks would go to South Africa for 3 fixtures, and in the week their second team would play against, say, the Western Province and Golden Lions and those type of teams. And fans would love seeing that, and that would bring more attraction and bring a lot of guys watching it from all around the world. And I actually agree. I think bringing Test rugby back to the touring system would be interesting. It's a change to the system. Change is good in some respects. Rugby has been the same thing for a couple of years now. More than a couple of years now. So I think it would be a good move. What is your opinion? Leave that down in the comments below. Do you think we should go back to tours? Next up, Australian Rugby is looking at return dates for their Super Rugby competition, having submitted their documents to their government that sets out its return to play plan, and it hopes to have a date by the end of this week. But they have said that they are aiming for July, but they have given a couple of plans to the government, so the government can kind of decide which plan is better. The difference between their government and, say, South African government, they are actually already in talks with sporting groups getting back to playing scenarios or tournaments, so they are likely to actually get back to that. New Zealand are in similar situations, but it is more of a couple of leaks or guys speaking before they could actually. Scott Robertson from the Crusaders, he said that a 10-week competition looks to be forming, where the domestic teams will be playing, so all the New Zealand Super Rugby teams, followed by a Mitre 10 Cup. Then another guy from New Zealand, MP, said to News Talk that the best hopes are a mid-June start for the competition. So it's just speculations over there. In South Africa, it's not there yet. SA Rugby has given in documents to the government submitting return dates or ideas for return dates, but we're not nearly as close as Australia and New Zealand. There has also been talks in a lot of groups with this Trans-Tasman competition with Australia and New Zealand. SANZA has dismissed that. Andy Marinos has said that any competition will have all the regions included until 2030, so that's quite a long time still. Marinos also said that there could be regional competitions if there is any restrictions beyond this year, maybe still this year as well. As we can see, Australia and New Zealand are making their domestic competition, South Africa as well. So maybe next year we could see a domestic type of Super Rugby. But beyond that, SANZA has already sold to all the broadcasters a 14-team Super Rugby that crosses borders. So we're pretty stuck with the competition as it is. And they have already sold a 4-team rugby championship. So Fiji and Japan joining the rugby championship might have to be up to World Rugby to actually enforce that if they wanted to. Then the last bit of news, according to Sunday Times, the World Nations Championship involving the 12 best teams in the world is back on the agenda. And it will have 3 leagues, the best league having the Six Nations and the Rugby Championship. These 2 respective competitions will be split into 2 conferences in this tournament if it would happen, with Japan and Fiji joining the Rugby Championship, so both competitions would have 6 teams. Like I said, that is if World Rugby enforces it, because Sanzar has already sold a 4-team Rugby Championship to broadcasters. Then there would be 2 more leagues with the other countries joining that in the autumn and spring breaks, like the first league would also have. But who knows, is this just more speculations? I just think so. I can't think that this would happen soon. Hey, I would love an idea like that, which incorporates the existing Six Nations and the existing Rugby Championship, and then maybe in the end of year tours or the mid-year tours, then we can have that other games. So yeah, I could see it happening then. What's your thoughts on that? Guys, that's the news for this week. Let me know of any speculations you've heard of. Leave a link also for that down in the comments below that I can read that. And then I'll see you for the next one. Cheers.